Good morning. Today is November 14th, 2018. It is 8 a.m. This is City Charter Commission meeting, and I'm going to call the meeting to order. First item up is approval of the minutes from June 26, 2018, and the minutes from August 22nd, 2018. Everybody had a chance to review those, and if so, I'd offer a motion to approve both of those.
I will make a motion to approve the minutes from June 26th and August 22nd.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any corrections or changes to either one? Not hearing any. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Who
Motion
seconded
carried.
on that?
Sorry.
Oh, excuse me.
Mike.
Second.
Okay.
Okay. So all those in favor say aye. We can do that. Okay. Opposed? Motion carries. We're here primarily for item number 3, which is to review the language regarding the appointment of the fire chief as recommended by the New Ulm City Council at their first meeting held on November 6th, and determine recommendations to the New Ulm City Council for future action on the charter amendment. I'll ask our city attorney to kind of review this and bring us up to speed on why we're here this morning.
Thank you, Chair. The state statute that governs the charters, the amendments, this commission, requires that if recommendations are made to the council to have an ordinance changing the charter, which is the action that has been taken in the past, that there has to be a public hearing, public meeting on that, which was conducted at the last city council meeting. The statute also says that the vote on the amendments has to be taken by the council within 1 month of the public meeting. So because an ordinance, which is what we would be doing to make these charter changes, has to be read twice under the existing language, that would mean that to get this done as expeditiously as possible, your recommendations would need to be received by the council at its meeting next week, and they could have the first reading. And then at the first meeting in December, that would be within 1 month of the public hearing, they could have the second reading or waive it, but then they could actually vote on it. If we don't get it to them by their meeting next week, it's going to push all this off for an entire cycle. We'd have to have another public hearing, et cetera. Another matter that came up at the council meeting that I would like to clarify is the recommendations of this commission are a package, and the council either votes in an ordinance to approve all of the amendments or they reject all of the amendments. They do not have the authority to pick and choose or to make changes to what the commission has recommended. Now, the reason that we're here this morning is because the members of the New Ulm Fire Department pointed out that the proposed revision to Section 98 of the Charter is inconsistent with the current bylaws or organizational documents of the New Ulm Fire Department. The language that we proposed in Section 98 was that the chief and such other officials as may be appropriate and necessary would be appointed by the city manager, subject to the approval of the city council. The bylaws and the organizational documents of the fire department give the chief the authority to appoint the other officials, which would be the deputy chiefs, et cetera, that work under him. And I think the fire department, and I don't know what the chief's position was, we had asked him to be here this morning. I think the fire department believes that the chief should still have that authority to do the appointment and not the city manager. Now, there's one factor in all of this that you probably should have in mind, and this is something that has come up. The chief probably could have explained this, but there are members of our fire department who are also city employees. And under federal law, it doesn't matter what job they are doing for the city of New Ulm. If they are working in excess of what the law considers to be overtime hours, they're paid time and a half. And I believe that, and Brian and Nicole, you could probably explain this, but I think that the deputy, they are paid, the deputy fire chiefs are paid,
Yes.
and it's not a substantial amount, but they do receive some compensation. If any of those individuals is also a city employee, the time that they are working for the fire department, they're probably going to get paid time and a half. And that can get to be a fairly expensive number because I think some of these people are at fairly high-paying jobs with the city. That's something that, we'd like to think could be coordinated with the chief if he is going to be making these decisions and selecting the people. But if he wants to go with deputies who are city employees, it's going to be costing the city more money. So that, as written, this would probably give our city manager and the council some input into that decision. Again, this is inconsistent with the fire department bylaws, which allow the chief to make that decision. I guess part of this, and I wish, again, the chief was here, administratively for our chief running his department, I assume he would like to have some input into deciding who these people are. The bylaws absolutely put the department under the control of our fire chief. And there is a reference in their organizational documents to electing a president and things like that. I think a lot of those things are administrative to take care of their benefits and deal with that. It's not the day-to-day operations of the department. But really what this commission needs to decide is, do you want to change your recommendation to the city council as far as the provisions on how these deputies would be selected, to have it go back to the chief making the selection? And Brian, I don't know if you have anything you want to
I mean,
add?
that pretty well, rounds it up. And if you go back a few years, we had a part-time fire chief, and we made a change to full-time fire chief. So we can make changes, and the bylaws have to reflect that. The only thing we did talk about at the city council meeting was that in the hierarchy of laws and regulations, you got your U.S. Constitution way up there, and then you've got the state statutes, you've got the city charter, the city code, and the bylaws are underneath. So any change we make will just require that the fire department change their bylaws to reflect what the charter and or city code says. So
That's a good point. It's
tail
not-
don't wag the dog, in other words.
Exactly, yeah. The charter, the code have priority for enforcement over the bylaws of an organization like this. And in the past, I think they have amended them to be
Correct.
consistent with changes that we have made to the code or to the charter.
I kind of like how we have it written. The fire chief has his opinion and can sit down with the city manager and say, I really would like to have XXX be in charge, but the city manager makes the final decision after reviewing the department. But that's just my opinion, but
I've been giving this a lot of thought about what I felt would be best for the city and best for the fire department. And I think, excuse me, I think sometimes it works really well in an organization for, say, the city manager to hire. I think education, because I'm so familiar with that, it works in a situation in which, there's a school board superintendent on down principal. When you have an assistant principal, the principal doesn't hire the assistant principal because you want lots of ideas coming in. You want input from a variety of people. So in education, to have that top person hire is very important. And then I think about the fire department, and they are very different. They're a group of men and women who are working very hard to save lives. They're working on the health and the safety of the city. And I think that idea, again, of, school board superintendent is kind of what we're talking about when it comes to who hires. I think if the city manager hires the people under the fire chief, you're talking about a bit of an inconsistency. a bit of an inconsistency in the fact that the fire department is one group moving forward for the safety and the health of the citizens of New Ulm. And I think for that sense of one group making the decisions, the sense of we are all in this together, I think the fire chief knows the best person to hire under, he or she knows the best person to hire under him. Again, I can see some frowns, so I'm going to try to explain this better. Sometimes it's really important when you have this group, it's really important for one person to hire because we want new ideas always coming in. Like in education, that's what makes education great, is an idea here, an idea there, an idea. And the ideas come together and you make for a really good education system. Now, when it seems to me that when you have a fire department, these are a group of men and women who need to work together. We don't necessarily need one idea there, one idea there. These are a group of people that are out there, and they're all in a group, they're all together, and they're all working really hard to solve a major problem. And I think it's best for the city if the fire chief does hire the people under him, the assistant fire chiefs and the fire marshal, because they are one unified group, and I think that one unified group needs to decide what's best for the health and safety of New Ulm. Did I make that clear? Okay.
Well, I understand perfectly what you're saying. I'm just backing up where I didn't realize what our city attorney had said, that, you know, if they're city employees this year, no, the two chiefs, fire marshal are not. But like when they elect the president, the vice president, the secretary, that also affects them because those are paid positions if they're a city employee.
They're not paid by
No.
the city. Those might be paid by the Relief Association,
Right,
but they're not
but-
paid by the
but
city.
that doesn't
so
cover
it's-
that.
That wouldn't
Okay.
kick in the overtime.
That answers my question.
And again, the language in the Constitution of the Fire Department, I think you all have this, but it just states at the first regular meeting in December, 2 assistant chiefs and the fire marshal will be appointed by the chief. So that's the language that they have pointed out is inconsistent with what our recommendation is to the charter. If we went forward with the language as recommended, they would have to amend this. But that's the question before you this morning is, do you want to revise your recommendation on that?
And I guess I'd like to point out one more thing, and that just simply is that what we're doing with the fire department is actually trying to bring it closer to all the other departments, you know, like the police department. The police chief does not hire and promote from within. You know, that goes through the system, goes up the channel, and gets done in human resources. But this proposed language that was adopted by the Charter Commission is actually different than that, because the department heads get brought to the city council for appointment in the rest of the city. They'll take the police department, you know, the commander does not come to the city council. That's done under the city manager, so it's just the department heads. In this particular case, it's going, you know, obviously through the chief, through the manager, and everything still goes to the city council.
Yes.
It's slightly different than, and so it kind of, you know, goes along with your concept of they are a slightly different group as a department as compared to street or police or park and rec. So
Well, and for
it
the
was
most part,
recognizing that.
they're a volunteer organization.
Yes.
The police department are all paid
Yeah.
professionals, so.
Yeah. So this is different than what normally happens in any other department, but it's closer than, let's say, the proposed language that they're saying they want to go back to in the bylaws. So it's kind of like
Yep.
in the middle.
Yes, and I'm understanding that. I just feel that it works. What we have now is working, and I want it to stay, and I want them to continue to be the powerful group that they are. And I'd like it to stay. And I understand the wording, and the charter needed to be changed because we don't want, you know, it said the fire department will hire the fire chief or whatever it said. We needed to change that. I agree with that, and I think the fire chief should be hired by the city manager, and I think the city council should approve that. But beyond that, I would like to leave it in the hands of the fire chief to decide who's next. So I'm proposing, I guess, that we change what we have decided. I am proposing that we change that.
Are you offering a motion to that effect, or you still want to just?
I'm open to discussion.
Okay.
I will offer a motion if we're ready, but I'll wait on that too.
So you are offering a motion?
I'll wait. If
I'll wait,
people
okay.
want to discuss it, I will wait.
Okay. Other discussion?
So under the new language, if the fire chief appoints an assistant fire chief, what's the next layer? City council has to approve it yet?
In my mind, it all still comes to the city council, and we give the rubber stamp, no matter what terminology we use.
So is the language basically bypassing the city manager?
Yes.
What they would want is
Yep.
basically going past city manager to the city council?
Well, it'd be the
At the
chief
second level.
making the decision.
At the second level,
Yeah.
To be
correct.
confirmed by the council, yep.
Right. We're talking about whoever the fire chief hires.
Yep.
Yeah. His decision, city council approves.
I just can't see a situation where the fire chief wouldn't be having some consultation with the city manager about making that decision, discussing it before they would make that decision anyway.
I think that that's true, and I'd like it to come from the fire chief to the city manager.
I see your point. I do see your point.
Well, I would think that would happen anyway.
Right. But who would
The
make
thing with
final
these
decision?
documents, I always fear of is where we have a city manager, we have a fire chief. Are we making rules because of that city manager and that fire chief? We got to think 30 years from now.
Right.
Yes.
It's not those same two people.
Exactly.
Right,
And you can't make rules based on the character of the people we have in there now.
absolutely not. No.
So, but ultimately, if the city council has the final say, it doesn't give me a lot of heartburn to have that type language, but whether it's prudent to do it that way, I'm not sure. You're taking some authority from the city manager.
Well, one thing is that if we were to go with the proposal, that still would require their constitution to be amended. Because that doesn't say anything about council approval of the chief's decision.
Okay.
So maybe that's a compromise they could live with, or wouldn't have any objections to. But even that would still be a little bit different, so.
And yet historically, that's always how it's been done. Coming to council for approval.
Of the
Chiefs.
assistant chiefs?
Yes, every
Yeah.
year.
Every
For,
year.
We
since
just
I
did
was
it.
on, and,
We just did
We
it
just
last
did it at
meeting.
the last council meeting.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
Right.
always been done, approved by the council.
every year. Since I've been on.
Yeah, I think for myself, as long as there's some kind of check and balance, I'm fine with that. What I worry about, and it doesn't really matter whether it's small town or big city, is, we get a good old boys network, and the chief is going to promote his sister's cousin because, his wife's putting the heat on him or whatever, however those things work, that there's some outlying body, whether it be a city manager or whether it be the council, that
Says, wait a minute.
Check and balance.
check and balance,
Right.
and so either way, I'm fine either way.
Well, I would entertain a motion one way or the other then. Somebody.
So Sue,
Right.
your point was to have the fire chief appoint them, subject to the city council approval,
That
like
would-
they're doing now?
Yes,
I see, okay. And that's what the fire chief is requesting?
He supported
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
There was, somebody from the audience that stepped up and requested that change. So, at the last council meeting.
Well, it's kind of, being on boards and everything else, I mean, it's nice in the language. But if I was a betting man, I would bet that if the city manager, even if he wasn't in the rules, didn't want the assistant, the city council would probably not vote for that appointment. So I'm just not sure that, I'm not sure the language is gonna maybe make that much difference.
Yeah, I'm not gonna jump up and down either way, because it's, either way, I think there's protection either way.
Right.
If I could point out, the motion hasn't been made yet, but if any of the members of the commission are going to move to make any type of amendment, my suggestion would be that you identify what the amendment is, and then otherwise, the motion would be to recommend the complete set of amendments that you'd previously adopted to the council with the new language, if there's going to be new language. That way, it's a clear recommendation, and we've got, because again, we have to do this as a package deal. So it would include everything else that you'd worked on and decided to change, and either retaining the language on this section 98 or whatever new language you would want.
I want to make sure that I understand, Mr. Hibbert. So I understand the proposal. I understand what I need to do, but are you also saying that if there's anything else in this charter that we'd like to see changed, that we need to bring that up now, or did you not say that?
You would, I mean, it's not on the agenda for this morning. I think the only specific item was reviewing the language relating to section 98 of the code on the fire
Yes,
chief.
yes.
So I don't know that it would be appropriate to be dealing with any new areas.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood what you just said.
Yeah, but
Okay.
I'm saying this, that's the agenda item. I think nothing is ever done to revoke the recommendations that you'd made initially. But again, just for what the council needs to do under state law, they've got a set of proposals, recommendations from
Yeah.
this commission, and they're gonna vote them up or down as a package. And it's not just gonna be this change to 98, it's gonna be everything else that you worked on.
Yes,
But that really is all that should be decided this morning, because that's the
Okay.
only thing on the agenda.
yes, thank you.
So how do we magically word that the manager still hires the chief and the rest is the chief? How do we magically amend that?
I'm trying to recall if they had presented language.
It's in your packet.
My packet isn't here.
Should I give it a try?
Do you have
What they recommended was, the chief of the fire department shall be appointed by the city manager, subject to the approval of the city council. Other officials, as may be appropriate and necessary, shall be appointed by the fire chief according to the fire department bylaws and subject to the approval of the city council. That's what the
Well,
recommended
that,
language.
okay, that's something where I think that's taking a significant step that you need to understand, because that's going to be in the charter if that was adopted. And basically what, contrary to what we've explained before, where we've got the charter, the code, and then its bylaws. By bringing the bylaws into the charter, it's allowing the fire department to have some control over how this is being done. And to me, that's a pretty substantial step. So I don't know that that would be a wise thing to do. I think that and the other part of that recommendation is, it says such other officials, their bylaws, I mean, internally, they've got captains, they've got, different things, and I understand that at an administrative level for our fire department, I don't know that the manager or the council is going to try and micromanage what the chief is doing to have an efficient group. So,
I don't have any concerns about micromanaging or anything like that. And I don't specifically know of a person on the fire department. I don't. I just know common sense tells me that when you have an organization such as the fire department, that we need to somewhat trust the fact that they are one unified group solving problems, and that one unified group is able and they're capable of determining the people under that fire chief, the assistants, and also the fire marshal. I don't think about taking power away from the city manager. That is not even in my thinking. I'm not thinking about, concerns or problems that might come up with the good old boys. I don't think about that either. I just think about what does our fire department do, and how can we best allow the fire department to do their job in the very best way that they can. And when I think about that, without everything else, I truly believe that the fire department is run best with a fire chief, and then the fire chief deciding who is the assistant fire chief, along with the fire marshal. I believe that that is what's best for the fire department.
Well, can we just get rid of the language in that it's according to the fire department bylaws?
Right, I think if we were to do that.
Just delete that?
Like that.
I don't see that new language anymore.
Want to try that as a motion?
So that piece that you just read, Brian,
I don't see that anymore.
is that in any of these
It's-
papers?
It's after the minutes of the last meeting. Flip the
Oh, here we
last
go.
page over.
It's on the email.
Oh, there it is.
So, what you would end up deleting is, on the last sentence
on
there,
this
the
page.
fire chief. You would keep and then strike according to the fire department bylaws and,
The reason mine did not get printed.
so it'd just say the fire chief subject to the approval of the city council.
I think if you were to delete according to the fire department bylaws, that would,
That's the way it's been done.
Talking about-
That's the way it's being done now anyway.
Yep.
Okay, so I will move that the chief of the fire department be appointed by the city manager, subject to approval of the city council. Other officials as may be appropriate and necessary shall be appointed by the fire chief, subject to the approval of the city council.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second?
Go ahead.
Second by Sue, I think, went first.
Yep.
Other discussion on this topic? Missing anything, any other input? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 4 is identify any other additional issues for discussion.
just, excuse me, Chair,
yes.
could I just, along the lines of what I was saying before, could the commission please take
Oh,
one
I'm
additional
sorry.
vote just to recommend that to the city council, the adoption of all the previous changes with the amendments that were just
Do you want a
passed?
separate motion for that?
Just so it's clear that we've got a package that everyone
So,
is
to entertain a
decided.
motion that the entire charter, including this change, has been adopted.
With the previous recommendations as amended by this
So I'll
change.
entertain that motion.
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Wise makes that motion. Do we have a second?
Second?
Sue for a second. Any other questions on that? If not, all those in favor say aye. Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Excuse me, any other additional issues? Hearing none, we will adjourn at 8:30 on the nose. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.